This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO classified. UFO classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Well, happy Fantopia Friday, my friends. I hope you've all had a wonderful week. It is with much sadness that I relay the news. I'm sure most of you have heard that the legendary Jim Mars passed away this week. He passed away of a heart attack, and he will be forever missed. His legacy is impressive. He was a very kind human being. He did brilliant research with regard to the JFK assassination, UFOs, cattle mutilations. He was on my show a few months ago, and I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to speak with him and get to know him and learn from him. And in honor of his passing and of his life, I will be replaying that show next Friday, so make sure you tune into that. We will miss him, and many prayers and blessings to his loved ones. Of course, I am always, getting in trouble and stirring stuff up and having grand adventures. I have been very excitedly preparing for my upcoming trip to Hessdalen, Norway. I've been talking to my friend and colleague, Professor Erling Strand, who has found a wonderful place for me to stay right in the heart of Hessdalen. I will be joining his scientific team to go out there and look for this anomalous light phenomena. I will be learning from Erling and his team, and I am looking forward to bringing back all of that knowledge to share with you. Hopefully, we can move research forward in the United States. It's been lacking as of late, and do really some progressive field studies. I will be sharing this with you, so make sure you contact me. Look at projecthessdalen.org. It is, in my opinion, the most groundbreaking scientific study we have ever done with regard to the UFO phenomena. So please take a minute, look at that, and I will be posting pictures and updates from my trip. So this is going to be a grand adventure. And luckily, I do not have to drive. I was a little concerned about that because I can barely navigate my way around Salt Lake, and I've lived here my whole life. But, that's one of those things. So I look forward to it. I have the pleasure tonight of interviewing someone who is, not only does he like really cool music like Tangerine Dream, and he likes my favorite movie of all time, Blade Runner, but he is a brilliant filmmaker. Christopher Garetano was born in New York. He is, like I was saying, he's a filmmaker, but he also has a new project in the works that he'll be telling you about. He is owner and president of White Phosphorus Pictures. In 2005, he released his first documentary titled Horror Business, an experimental study regarding the struggles of independent horror movie making. Ooh, I need to see that. That sounds good. In 2006, he set out to make Mantauk Chronicles, and he subsequently created two completely different motion pictures. We're going to talk a little bit about his research and work there tonight. I'm excited. If you don't know about Mantauk, and I don't know, I need to learn more about this. It is incredible. It is a place where supposedly alleged secret experiments took place. They were conducted between 71 and 83. And the Mantauk Chronicles is primarily a character study with bizarre and horrific cinematic interpretations of mind control, alien abduction, time travel experiments, and murder. So, wow, this is This is a trip. So I have to bring you on now because you've got so much more that you're going to share about your History Channel show that's coming up and all of these things. But I mean, seriously, you like really cool music. So I think we can definitely hang.
Of course. No, yeah, Tangerine Dream is a big influence, and Blade Runner is, I don't know, it's hard to say what my all-time favorite movie is, but Blade Runner is definitely up there in the top 5. So
I heard you say that, like in an interview, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this guy is just so on my team because I loved Blade Runner. I mean, that movie will be, I think, one of my all-time favorites because it was so visually stunning and the music was incredible.
Yeah, Evangelist. Yeah, and I like his score for another Ridley Scott film, lesser known, 1492, Conquest of Paradise. It's a kind of a dreamy score like the one for Blade Runner. But I think that stuff resonates with me because I spent so much time, in my mind as a kid and daydreaming, and now putting all of that into the movies. So, I just that music helps me get places, especially when I'm writing or even thinking of scenes. It's it's incredible stuff. I listen more so to movie scores now than ever.
Isn't that wonderful? And I always remember the movie score for The Mission. That was not only a beautiful film, but the soundtrack was incredible.
Sure. No, that's another fantastic score. Yeah, I have a huge collection of movie scores. Everything from Tangerine Dream to Jerry Goldsmith to a lot of horror scores from the 80s, a lot of synth stuff. All of that. I mean, like, there are scores that never happened that I wish happened, like the Pink Floyd score to Jodorowsky's Dune, that a movie that was supposed to be made but never happened.
And wow.
Yeah. She's can only imagine what that band would have done for that film.
That would have been a trip, no doubt. So how, you've had such an interesting life and you were so artistic and you're very well spoken. You have a wonderful voice. I know your show on History Channel will be off the hook, but how did you get involved in the paranormal and pursuing the darker side of life?
That started when I was a kid. I was just so deeply interested in it. And then a little bit later, I had experiences as a kid, several which I guess back then I thought was a haunting. And now, since I've learned about, other dimensional encounters and other things that have been suggested to me through meeting my subjects along the way, I've considered these things that I experienced when I was a kid perhaps some, other dimensional or even some kind of interstellar contact as a kid. So all that stuff really inspired me. And what's strange is I was, after making that movie Horror Business, I was really interested in making a picture about cryptozoological subjects, mainly the North American Sasquatch. And what ended up happening, I lived and was born in New York and lived there my whole life. And I had a friend, he was from Florida at the time, and he suggested that I make a movie about the Mantauk Project, which I was familiar with the legends, and I wasn't really interested because I read that first book, and I felt it was certainly like a lot could have been embellished in that. It was a small book, and it just didn't resonate with me. But what did was the idea of actually, as a filmmaker, like going to the homes of these elderly men who are, have been telling this tale for 20 years, and the idea of just sitting in front of them in an intimate setting was the most exciting thing, just as a starting point. And so that's what I did. And my first visit was to a man named Alfred Bielik, who in one afternoon told me everything I ever learned in science fiction. And I was just, I was voracious with fiction. I read a lot of science fiction books, horror novels, movies. So basically, this man is now telling me, he's in his 80s, and I'm sitting outside of his home in Fort Myers, Florida, and he's telling me that it's all real, and seriously looking me in the eyes and telling me. So I thought that would be interesting for an audience, and that's where I started.
And then that's incredible. This must have been, because this story, all of it, there's so many layers to it. And at first glance, people would look at this and just say, this is just a few delusional people making up stories like they do about a lot of things in this arena. But how did you, was that talk with him, was that what really solidified for you that there was something more to the story that was very real?
No, not right away, because I shot Alfred Bielek's interview in '06, and I ended up, finishing a version of the film in 2011, late in 2011. I took that around for a little while, and then I started the movie all over again in 2013, and the one that's out in the world right now is the one I started in 2013, finished late 2014. So Al's interview didn't right away convince me of anything, and neither did Preston Nichols. I just thought it was interesting, as a filmmaker, like, this is interesting. What began to convince me over the years was my further research into things like MKUltra, or something as recently that I've learned details about making the Dark Files for History Channel was the Holmesburg prison experiments. Things like that did exist and do exist, and we were able to prove that with evidence. So, because of the similarities in at least the boy program, which in short, Mantauk was a secret government program where human subjects were kidnapped off the street, runaway kids, and brought down to this secret facility underneath the Camp Hero Air Force Base and used in a lot of brutal experiments, mind control experiments, some, suggesting that there were time travel experiments and that these kids were being used as kind of, human crash test dummies in a way, being put through this device that they didn't know what was going to happen to the kid. And so learning about these other programs in association, I started to believe that there was some truth to this. To this day, I can't tell you 100% that I believe everything that any of these guys told me. Some of them I don't believe, but two of them I do believe had some kind of association with this. And I've gone through everything over the years just to consider, what could have happened. Could these be false memories? They say there were a lot of drugs involved in the experiments. Could these have been staged hallucinations? Partially, right? And then some of the stuff could be real, like the experiments with the boys, the acid experiments, things like that. And so coming to this time, like over 10 years of this, my ultimate conclusion is that something definitely did happen there, and you'll find out in the show why I feel this way. There are other reasons too, but things get obscured along the way. You know this in ufology. It's like, just because there are people saying it happened on one end of the spectrum doesn't mean they're correct. And just because they're lying doesn't mean some other people aren't telling the truth. And it's the same thing with this story. It's such a vast story, and there's now so many people coming and saying they were involved in the Mantauk project. And I just, it's hard to, you have to be very cautious as to who you believe in this situation.
Absolutely. And that's a great point. I mean, this happens, and I think that this is pretty prevalent, especially now in ufology with some of the secret space program stuff coming out. I mean, there are people coming out and you can't verify who they are, and they're coming out with some pretty fantastic stories. So how do you weed through that, and how do we get good information to the public? It's incredibly tricky.
Well, for starters, Mantauk Chronicles for me was always a character study. So my thing was, I didn't want to tell you how to feel. I would kind of tell you how I felt, but I wouldn't thrust that upon you in any way. I wouldn't do that. The whole idea is that I trust you and trust your intelligence. So what I want to do is I want to collect this information, things that I saw and witnessed, and then portray it to you in the best way possible, keep you entertained so you don't fall asleep. And at the same time, let this information out. Let these men tell you the story. That was my whole point with that film. And I didn't want to tell you how to think. So at the end of it, ultimately, we started this thing with History Channel, and the Dark Files is actually an investigation, a partial character study too. And what's fantastic is we had resources that I could never get when making Mantauk Chronicles. I did, all in my own time and money. But this thing, we had resources. We had geologists come down and test the ground, and we had analysts and all sorts of different people checking things out and cross-referencing. And I have my two co-hosts. One is a journalist and the other one is ex-CIA. So, we had some really great people on the project, and it's a serious investigation. The only one, I feel, the only investigation that's worth talking about into the Montauk project. We came up at...
That's incredible. No, I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's really important, and it makes me happy to see that History Channel would do a show with such brilliant people that really care about getting good information out. Because we were talking before we started the show, there's so many shows where people are coming up with basically just telling their fantasies, and people are believing that this is reality. So I really commend you for doing that. That's incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, I know, and it's not like that. And that's what's so fresh about this show, is that it doesn't, it's not going to seem familiar. It's really well done. I'm so happy with it. I mean, I had a huge hand in it, but, it's such a big project, and there were obviously a lot of editors on the project, other producers, great guy, Brad Bernstein, worked as basically the showrunner on the whole thing. These are just fantastic people, and everybody wanted it to be what it is, and hopefully it's received the way we intended it. I believe it will be.
Well, I am sure if you have anything to do with it, it will be an excellent show, and I'm looking forward to seeing it, because I think that we need good information, and I really encourage people, especially I know that my listeners are educated and they've got common sense, and they can see through a lot of this stuff that we're seeing, especially in ufology. But to have someone like you with your two co-hosts out there giving us good information, that will be incredible. And that the ties between what you're researching and the UFO realm, I mean, it's interconnected somehow. So tell us about that.
They certainly are. Well, the gentleman who initially brought this out into the public suggested within this 13-year period, and these more believable stories of children being kidnapped and used as human subjects, within that, Alfred Bielek claims that not only were there human experiments for mind control and hopefully on their part developing Manchurian candidate type assassins, which were also developed in other programs like MKUltra or Holmesburg. That's been confirmed. So in this case, he said that happened, yes, but also here's this other element. The people who ran the Montauk project, the very few, were in contact with extraterrestrial intelligence, and in trade, it suggested that they would give human subjects over to the extraterrestrials for some technology, and the technology that was given to them was used to create something called the Mantauk chair. Now, I'm just repeating, like I did in the film, or letting you know what these gentlemen said. Just because I'm saying this, I just wanted you to know that I'm not supporting every word, and I make that very clear in my film. So they claim that this chair was reverse engineered, partially from alien extraterrestrial technology, and used for interstellar travel, interdimensional travel, time travel, and also if they had a powerful enough psychic in the chair, this chair could be used to manifest an idea, a thought, into physical reality. So one experiment was they would think of a glass or a ball, and that ball would appear, as Preston Nichols says, materialize from the background ether and materialize in front of them. So eventually they wanted to create something living, and that they thought of a mouse, and they were able to create that. Ultimately, and this is this big heroic, like kind of cheap sci-fi story that I felt when I first read the book, that the three gentlemen who were involved felt it was getting too heavy, and that the program was eventually going to be used on the public, the mass population, and they didn't want that to happen, so they decided to be heroes, and they used the Montauk chair to create a monster. So this monster tore up the base, and because the psychic Duncan Cameron who sat in the chair thought of this thing, and so this creature tore up the base and ended the project, and they shut it down. That's the big hero story at the end, and that's the one I wasn't buying. So my focus throughout all of this, even if that's true, okay, even if it's true, and I've seen too many science fiction movies and read too many books to know where these guys may have been cherry picking from. I mean, everything from the Outer Limits to the Twilight Zone to Forbidden Planet. And so if that's the case, and if it was true, regardless, my focus has always been on this boys program, which I truly believe in my heart of hearts that it did happen.
Well, that is some pretty heady stuff. And you say that, and it reminds me a bit. I talk about Nick Redfern in his book, The Final Events, and I talk about that a lot because I think it's really important, especially given what's going on now in ufology and some of the disinformation. But this book was about a fellow who was contacted by a couple people in this top secret kind of rogue group called the Collins Elite. And they were experimenting using Aleister Crowley's work to call in Lam, this alien entity. And it sounds to me, the Mantauk chair, that there's a bit of this kind of overlapping where they're just playing with this dark energy. And I think it is very intriguing, and I could see something like that happening.
Yes, and again, this is the weird thing. So along the way, even the most outrageous stuff, the further I would dig and the further research I would do, and even experiences I've had, there would be some, at least even in the craziest stuff that was suggested that happened there by these gentlemen, there would be some kind of little confirmation of truth. For instance, things that Edgar Mitchell said, or even things that Gordon Cooper said. So it's like, I was at a point where I really got very paranoid and really believed in all of it for a short period of time. I had to come back to Earth for a second because I was losing myself a little bit at one point. And this is after years of being immersed and being around these people, going into their homes and spending days with them. And it was a long time. It was a long time to be buried in the subject matter, and I'm still doing it. So.
And that's the thing. I think you can really quite easily lose your footing in this because you're getting all of this information. And I mean, there are times when I go to bed and I'm scared out of my mind because of the things that I'm learning, and then I just have to take a step back and ground myself and then go, paint or sing a song or just do, walk through the grass, just something so I'm not losing a part of myself. And I know that John Keel talked a lot about that, kind of the dangers associated with entering this realm of research. So that's curious, and I can't wait to learn more about that and how some of this influenced your life and some of the things that you experienced, because I'm sure, just like me, when you get involved with this, there's some very freaky things that happen in your personal life.
Very, very much so.
We will talk about
trip.
that. Oh, so you're not kidding about that, and we will talk about that. I am Erica Lukes, here with my fabulous guest who has a new show on History Channel, Christopher Garetano. You can find him look for the Mantauk Chronicles. I will be posting the link here in chat, and we're going to talk to him when we get back. We will catch you on the other side of the break.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Looking for a radio show like no other?
We need something brand new.
Then tune in to the KCOR Digital Radio Network, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and get ready for the quantum shift. The world is evolving around us. Will you be ready for the shift?
This is one of the most important decisions you'll ever make.
The Quantum Shift. Hosted by Dr. Sam Muggsy, will enlighten your understanding of the world and bring you mentally into a better understanding of existence. The Quantum Shift. Live Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
What if maintaining a healthy weight was as simple as drinking a cup of coffee? With Valentis Coffee, it's that easy. Harvested from the world's most pristine coffee farms and packed with the purest ingredients on earth, Valentis takes losing weight to a completely new level. At Valentis, we believe everyone deserves a chance to be healthy and fit. It's pure, natural, healthy, and delicious. Click the Valentis Healthiest Coffee banner on the KCOR Digital Radio Network website and take the Weight Loss Guarantee Challenge. Valentis Coffee, simply the world's healthiest coffee.
I'm jumping in with my clothes on.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb, but if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Learn more at ultimatepartyfoul.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety.
Here's what happened on the last episode of Three Guys, No Ties.
But our dumbass did offer up the excuse of the week for what happened. He told the police that he took 5 generic Viagra pills, and when the bottle said to only take 1. Well, that could do it, I guess. Police are waiting for the blood test results before making a decision on what to charge him with.
Are you suggesting that his shifter was able to press the gas pedal?
What are you going to charge him?
I think he's lying. What do you think? It must be because I took so much Viagra. It just went.
Charge him with extended appendages? I don't know.
Ow, my.
Three Guys, No Ties. Wednesday nights, 7 to 9 Pacific on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
America's favorite
radio station
just keeps getting better.
Hello, people. Aaron Hunter here, host of the show Real Paranormal Activity, where we tell the true stories of the paranormal from people like you. We also interview authors, mediums, psychics, and investigators as we dive headfirst into the murky waters of the paranormal. We discuss subject matter such as orbs, shadow people, paganism, the occult, and the demonic. Join me on Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, here at KCOR Digital Radio Network.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back and happy Fantopia Friday. I'm Erica Lukes. Always happy to be here and see my friends in chat. I really appreciate you supporting me and caring enough about the content to get in there and get involved. Please share the Facebook posts about this show, get the word out, because I hope to try to give you guys good information so we can all make an informed and educated decision about how we are approaching all of these subjects, because many of them, including the subject that we're talking about, is very disturbing, and in all likelihood there are many truths to what we are hearing about the Mantauk experiment, and I am absolutely in awe and in shock about some of these things. I haven't studied this as much as I would like to, but Christopher Garetano, my guest tonight, is here, and he's a brilliant filmmaker. He's got a new show on the History Channel called The Dark Files, and that will be making its debut on August 24th, right after Ancient Aliens, so you can catch that. But, you know, we were talking when we left off about the Mantauk chair, about the fact that they used this to supposedly create a monster to destroy everything, and then you having just kind of getting information from people not knowing what to believe, and also getting bits from like Edgar Mitchell or things that Gordon Cooper was saying, and then weaving your way through all of this to find some truth. But let's keep going. I mean, tell us about your experience with this and how, I mean, I know that it was hard for you because I look at this and I can't even imagine how much you had to deal with to find the truth. But with regard to Edgar Mitchell and Gordon Cooper, what would they say that would help you to know that you were on the right path?
Well, directly, credible witness, and I believe they are both credible people. I mean, credible witness to me is better than evidence. Evidence can be tampered with, manipulated, redacted, all sorts of things. So hard evidence is much more malleable than I feel a credible witness. A credible witness is someone you can trust. I mean, can you trust one of our Apollo mission moonwalkers? I feel like we can. A brilliant man who is saying things like our governments of the world are in contact with intelligent extraterrestrial life, have worked with them, things like that. Gordon Cooper had spoken to Lee Spiegel, and this is the story that Spiegel told me, that Cooper said that he was going to be available for a time travel experiment. And I think Lee Spiegel said that, he thought he was joking with him, and he wasn't. He was dead serious. And so this is a man who had subjected himself to all sorts of, horrible situations to advance, astroscience. So I just feel like if I can believe these guys, and I mean these associative elements, the extraterrestrial idea, then I can consider it to be true. And then my own experiences, obviously I've had a few of my own experiences where I know obviously, everything's not what it seems. So I'm very careful about my words on this because I'm not the type that's going to come out here and claim, and I have a big problem with these people, that I know the names of every extraterrestrial, where, ancient origins of man began, and I know exactly how it all went down because I just don't support any of those.
Right.
Things. We don't know. We don't know, but and the only way we're going to get to the truth is to kind of sift through these fantasy artists that are out there, kind of just trying to make a buck. And everyone has to make a buck, but why don't you do it in a more honest way? So in my case, I want to just as a filmmaker in general, I feel like it's just interesting to hear people tell these stories, and just the situation alone that these gentlemen, Alfred Bielek and Preston Nichols, both did not make any money off of this thing. They didn't make much money at all. So they were, Alfred died in 2011. He took the story to his grave. So it's like, why are these men telling this story? These seemingly very well-read and intelligent men that weren't even really getting that much attention at that time. Preston's attention has increased since then, but they really weren't getting too much attention for it. So I don't know if they were doing it for attention or money or what. And I had to go through all of this, to stay objective. I had to really think about every angle. If they could be lying, if they are telling the truth, where do I find references? It was very difficult. And so there was another gentleman involved in this. His name is Stuart Swerdlow. He claims to this day that he was one of the boys that were used in the experiments. His story, I feel, was much more fabricated, and perhaps there's even, nefarious intention behind what he's doing these days, which is now running this kind of recruiting people in an almost a cult-like situation, and recruiting people into, his world, and trying to teach them things that he claims he learned in the Mantauk project, which I feel is kind of limiting their scope. So I see a lot of this going on. And then also I've met a lot of people who claim they were not only Mantauk boys, that's the coin that was termed for the kids that were kidnapped, but Mantauk girls or Plum Island girls. And I am fair with every single human being that I've come across and everyone that I've come across, and I will continue to be fair. I don't feel like it's smart to make people feel uncomfortable in an interview because you get less out of them, you don't get more. And you'll see in the show that Stuart Swerdlow is kind of put to the test by my co-host Steve Volk. He wrote a fantastic book called Fringeology. I don't know if you ever read it, But he's also a journalist from the Washington Post, and he writes for several other publications. And I agreed with him that he felt it quite necessary at that point. Also, my co-host Barry Eisler, who's ex-CIA and an author, they felt it was a little more necessary to kind of, ask harder questions, and so did I. And so these guys telling this elaborate story, I feel, and I'm sure you would agree with me, that after telling the story for 20 years, and, we're entertaining you and we're listening to this elaborate story with absolutely no evidence to go on, it's time that we ask a few more questions, okay?
Right.
If we're going to go any further, let's get some more information out of you instead of this same story that's been told all these years. So Preston handled it okay. I mean, he didn't have much else to say. He kind of gave some information that I think Steve was cross-referencing and trying to research and find out to confirm. But Stewart on the show, you'll see, that kind of flipped out when he was put on the spot. And you tell me what you feel about that, and the audience will judge for themselves as to what that indicates. But I feel like we're in a situation where there is truth in the story of the Mantauk project, but there are people who somehow along the way got involved and joined a fabricated part of it, or an elaborated part of it. And that's been the difficult part this whole time for me, is who do I believe? Who can I trust? And I got very paranoid after a while, being around the subject matter and just in general, because some of these people are very convincing when you're around them for days. They want you to believe. They want you to believe what they're telling you. And so they'll do everything in their power to try and convince you of it. They're just things I can't say that I was involved with. But it got very terrifying and quite detrimental at times, too. It was compromising. And so this subject matter is so different than, like, I'm developing a film of, the ultimate Bigfoot movie. It's a subject matter I love. Another very serious topic for me. It's going to be exciting, and I love I'm focusing on older stories that I've never really been told right. And that, for me, is an exhilarating experience to make something like that. Mantauk has not been that way. It's been rough for a decade of this. And my head filled with kids getting kidnapped and tortured is not fun. And it's such a dark story, too, so there's really no redemption in it all. Basically, the whole core of the story is that we're being ruled by a very evil force, and eventually they're just going to take us over, and that's the warning throughout the whole thing.
And that does wear on you, and I feel for you, and I don't know the depth of all of your anxiety, because what I've been involved with, while it's frightening and complex, it doesn't involve some of this terrifying stuff that you've had to deal with. When you were dealing with some of these people, did they feel like their life was in jeopardy, or did you at any point?
I did, for sure, because I just grew very paranoid. It was weird. I met Alfred Bielek in 2006, and then I went on to Preston Nichols. And I didn't take it as a joke, but I found it to be amusing, because I was coming off of somewhat of a comedic documentary, because it was playful and fun, and it was about these guys trying to make horror films, and there was some natural comedy about it all. So I entered Mantauk Chronicles in 2006 with that sense of playfulness, and immediately was kind of shut down when I got to Stuart Swerdlow's home, and now you have this great contrast between a couple of elderly gentlemen living alone like hermits, and you would expect their behavior to be the way it was and the way they lived. But then you get to Swerdlow's home, and the guy's living in an affluent neighborhood, and everyone's well dressed and well composed, but they're telling you this story of world domination, mind control, aliens, monsters, all this stuff over breakfast, over dinner, and they're not changing it. And then you have a guy come up to you and say, "Well, Stuart, you're very heavily programmed, but there's a way to fix you, and I want you to look at these symbols." Now I feel like my head's being messed with. And that's what they do. They say, "Well, we're here to adjust your mind pattern." These are words that they use. So that's a situation I was in and out of for a very long time. A lot of it's personal, and it's scary stuff when someone is trying to manipulate your mind and saying, "Well, I'm just doing it to help you or prevent the forces from manipulating your mind." So I got back down to earth at one point, and I said, "Okay, I'm okay." Before this, I was okay. I've had some pretty crazy things happen in life that had nothing to do with this project. But I recovered from it. I've been a strong person because of it. And it's like, this situation almost knocked me down because I think for all of us, loss of control is the worst possible scenario. And so the idea that you are being controlled by everything from your cell phone to your breakfast cereal to the light fixtures in your house. This is what the Swerdlows tell everybody, like there is mind control coming out of everything. And so it puts you in this constant state of fear and paranoia. And I don't want to live like that. If there is anything like that going on, I think the smartest thing to do is to not get into that state of fear. You're alive, you're breathing, live your life. If you're interested in this stuff, try to see it as if you're watching a movie or reading a book. See it from a distance. Don't get so deep into it. Don't feel like you have to do exercises, mental and spiritual exercises all the time. You do. I think you have to be spiritually balanced. But if someone's selling you mind control, preventative secrets, I would say avoid that and just keep your head out of the clouds and keep your feet on the ground and don't buy into every word because you're going to be okay. At the end of the day, you're going to be fine. And to sort of fill your head with all this mind control stuff, I think, is the mind control. It's scary stuff.
Exactly. And that's what I am seeing is pretty prevalent in ufology now, especially with some of the key players. It's like, whoa, I mean, presentations that I have seen are so subliminal, and there's so much of this really weird alt-right kind of mentality going on, and the things that are, I just don't get it. I mean, it's baffling to me, and that is, and all this mind control, and I don't get it, and I think it's frightening, and I think we need to be aware of it, but we do need to be grounded and have a life. Like you say, that's really, really important.
Sure.
So tell me, as far as Stuart, give me a little bit of background information on him.
Well, he claims that when he was a child, very different than the other Mantauk boys, whereas the other Mantauk boys were runaways, drug addicts, prostitutes, street kids, that it makes sense that a program like this would look for human subjects in that way because they've done it before. They've gone to orphanages. They've gone to prisons. So a ton of runaway kids in the 70s that are already gone that nobody's thinking about anymore. If you're thinking like these scientists, that's what you want to call them, that's perfect. We don't have to use lab rats anymore. Let's just get these kids, let's recruit them, bring them down there. They're expendable. No one cares about them anyway. This is the very cold insect, mentality that they have. Okay. For science, this is for science. So in the case of Swerdlow, he claims he wasn't one of those kids, that he was such a special person that they singled him out because of his DNA and would extract him from his bedroom at night with a kind of a biorhythmic transport device that would take him from one point to another instantaneously. So he'd be in his bedroom, they would zap him, they would hone in on the frequency on that biorhythm point where he was, and then zap him into the Mantauk Project. So he said that he did go through the traumas, that he was beaten, that he was brutalized, and he saw a lot of horrible things happen there. But they wanted him for more than just the expendable lab rat, test dummy. And so they trained him. They trained him in the art of mind control and psychic abilities, psychic warfare, all sorts of things that he claims he's able to do. He's a medical intuitive. He can look inside your body and tell you what's wrong, medically, if there's anything wrong with you. So there's some huge, tall claims that the guy has. And he is confronted on the show with them. Now, here's the deal with the show. This is what's so wonderful about the show, that everybody, including even Steve, who's the skeptical one of the bunch, cares so much about the truth that he's not trying to debunk the Montauk Project throughout this process. He's just trying to sift through the junk, if there is any, and get to the most believable, palatable, and attainable truth. Because if we start with reptiles and giant insects and traveling to Mars and swimming with dolphins and all that stuff, if we start with that, it's going to be really tough for us to make any progress. So we all unanimously agreed that we needed to start with the boy program and the fact that it's believable that runaway kids may have been recruited, and so that's really our main focus. And it wasn't disrespectful to anybody who made more of an elaborate claim. But it was time to start asking some questions like, okay, so please tell me why this is inconsistent, or please tell me this. It wasn't intended to disgrace anyone, ever, any question that was asked. And so I feel like when someone has that reaction, they have plenty to hide. In fact, they may be lying.
Right. And I have to ask you, so was Stuart, was he married? Did he have a family?
Yes, he lives in Michigan with his family, his wife, Janet, his kids. And, on the front, there's this, seemingly very pleasant group of people, especially in the group. There's some wonderful people in their group expansions. But then there's some other things going on that I don't think I could talk about on the radio, but just ideas of deprogramming techniques, the fact that people are being brought into this situation and really not coming out of it healthy. They're almost being owned by the situation. It's almost like there's so much fear, like any cult does. They put you in a state of fear. They isolate you and make you feel like the only thing you can do is their exercises. So it's almost imprisoning you in this way of thinking. And now your spectrum is narrowed, and now you can't go anywhere. And now you can't think outside of the box. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. We've got a question from Troy. He's in Texas, and he sent it via Skype, and he said, after the movie, did others reach out to you? Are they legit? And is there going to be a follow-up on that might expand on new witnesses coming forward?
Yes, Troy, they did. And if you're referring to Mantauk Chronicles, the follow-up is the Dark Files, and I would say it's the best one ever. It's these two movies together, I don't think it's going to be very difficult to make something better than, I think eventually someone, if it's not us, it's going to be somebody, making a third part where we finally declare, okay, it happened. Like at the end of the Dark Files, I think you're going to be very satisfied, if you're interested in the truth in this thing, to know that we found significant evidence, but it has to be further pursued. You'll understand at the end of the show, for the sake of keeping it for the show, I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is. But there were several things that were found, and they have to be further explored. So I think it's either going to be us, or it's going to be somebody else that now says, okay, let's take this further. And I think in a few years that we will know the truth, and that we'll be able to say that something happened there for sure. But as for other people, there have been so many other people now coming out. I guess maybe because they feel more comfortable, or some people are lying, or they really believe they were there. I don't know. It's hard to say because we've not been able to prove 100% that they were there. The one thing, outside of everything we found in the show, is I was on Coast to Coast AM a couple of years ago, and shortly after I was contacted by a person who worked for a major chemical company in the 70s. And that person told me things that blew my mind. We tried to get that person for the show, but they backed out because they have a pension from this company, very well-known company, and they know that if they were on the show, people would figure out it was them, for sure, because they were like the only person involved. But they oversaw documents that really prove a lot, that funding that this company funded the Mantauk Project. The money had to come from somewhere, and the old story is it came from this, Nazi gold train, which I never bought. So now it made sense. Now it made sense that this company funded this project for sure. But
so who are the key players?
The key players in this whole thing in the beginning were A gentleman named Alfred Bielek that I told you about, he claims he was a psychic director at the program. Preston Nichols, he was recruited for his knowledge of radar, electronics, and also used to, basically after the boys were brutalized, they were kidnapped, they were put through these horrific experiments, loads of drugs injected into them, beatings, all sorts of horrific things. And then once their personalities were fractured, Preston was the guy to put them back together and then implant programming into their subconscious, deep into it. So he claims he had a variety of jobs. And then there was a gentleman named Duncan Cameron who is alive today and claims that he was the powerful psychic in the chair that manifested the monster at the end. And then later on, Stuart Swerdlow showed up in the 90s and started telling his story of a Montauk boy, the fact that he was extracted from his bedroom when he was a kid. So it wasn't until years later that more people started coming out. A guy named, and it's a fake name, but I know him personally because of the work I've done with him on Mantauk Chronicles. He's also in the Dark Files. His name is James Bruce, and he claims that he was a boy that was taken into the program, which I feel he's so, the way I see it is he's believable because I feel that someone who went through that amount of trauma would be like James. You know, he's not exactly 100% stable. His story's kind of erratic. You know, it's fragmented. He never talks. You know, like Stuart Swerdlow composes himself perfectly and he seems rehearsed. James isn't. He's like kind of all over the place, but he's serious, and his identity is concealed both in my movie and in the show, and he never wanted anything for it really. You know, maybe just for a missed day of work, but he's obviously not doing it for the attention. He's not doing it for the money. So why on earth is he telling this story? And this is a guy with children, with a job, you know, in his 40s. So I don't know. It's something to consider.
Oh my gosh, this is incredible, and I want to learn more about all of this. I mean, specifically who the people pulling the strings were. I am Erica Lukes. Go to mtkchronicles.com and learn all about Christopher's project. I am happy to be here. This is UFO Classified. We're going to take our longer break, but then we will be back.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows, visit her website at ufoclassified.com. UFO Classified. UFO Classified. This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51. Wait, that doesn't exist. This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Mantauk Chronicles is the story of 3 men who claim that they were brainwashed and forced against their will by a clandestine organization to take part in secret experiments. Evil atrocities are said to have occurred deep beneath the surface of Camp Hero Air Force Base. This is a disturbing story that is, honestly, I think on the break, I was talking to my guest this evening and my mouth is hanging open. I have not delved into this subject, but I will be looking into this, as I believe that the more I learn, the more I think that some of the things that are taking place now in ufology could be connected to what took place. The Mantauk Chronicles can be found if you go to mtkchronicles.com. You can read all about that and watch the movie. And my guest tonight is Christopher Garetano, who was born in New York. He is he's a graduate of the School of Visual Arts in Manhattan and has a new show out on the History Channel called Dark Files. And I'm so excited to see this. But when we were leaving off, you mentioned James Bruce, and you were talking about some of the players in this disturbing chain of events, these experiments that were taking place. Let's continue where we left off. Tell us a little bit more about James.
So James, he said that he was like a bad kid in high school. He was doing drugs, getting in trouble. He was even burglarizing, car stereos and minor things here and there. And but he said that's exactly what this program was looking for. They wanted kids like him that were kind of fearless and also that wouldn't be believed. These were his words. So he said that slowly he was being recruited, and he felt like he was being guided into something. Even at his youth, there was he grew up it sounds like fiction, but it's true. He grew up at a slaughterhouse in eastern Long Island. Like at this farm where they were, and he was around violence, and he was around all of these things, and he felt like he told me later that he felt like this is all part of his preparation for this. They had eyes on him even when he was a kid. So, but when he gets to high school, he's this kind of bad kid getting in trouble, and he said that's exactly what they wanted. So, one night he said that his father was actually involved in this. Maybe they paid him off, maybe not. That his father picked him up where he was hanging out with all of his friends, and that they started to drive out east, and he didn't care because he was drunk and high, and he was laying in the back seat and fell asleep. So he said when he got to Mantauk, Alfred Bielek was standing there waiting. And he said previously his father was selling stuffed animals on the side of the road out east around that area in Riverhead, and Al Bielek and Duncan Cameron had approached their table and took a picture with James. This is his story. And so that night he drives out to Mantauk, and Al Bielek is waiting, and his father and Al Bielek guide him down this path in the woods that leads to this hatch. Now, later in the film Mantauk Chronicles, James led me down the path in the woods to this hatch, which is now cemented up, but it's there. Could he have made this whole thing up? Yeah, of course. But again, he has not revealed his true identity to anybody. So and I've been around him in private times trying to shake him a little bit, and it just doesn't strike me as someone who's doing this for fun either. He's really disturbed by this stuff. So, and I believe he believes it happened for sure. So he was taken down into this hatch, and inside this room were several computers at that time, and the Montauk chair, as he described it. So he said that Alfred and his father said, "You're going to get inside this chair." I believe there were a couple of other gentlemen in the room. He said, "No, I'm not doing anything. I don't even know what we're doing here." And so they shot him with some kind of serum with a syringe, put him in the chair, and he said immediately he felt like he was traveling through time and going through different dimensions. And, do I believe that James went through this thing? Because he said he was going through this for years and then eventually being used as a triggered assassin. I've read about these programs, and they did give people, the ones that we could prove, like Holmesburg Prison, they were giving people massive amounts of experimental hallucinogens. And is it possible that James was part of a program? Yes. Is it true that he flew into the sun and all the other things he may have hallucinated? I don't think so. I think that that's part of the hallucination. And for whatever purpose they were messing with his head, they accomplished it. I can't confirm that he's an assassin, but he claims he's been on several assassination missions to kill certain people. He's triggered to do it. And it's so weird because we live in a time where, this is what's so terrifying is like if you look around, you look at the news, I don't know why people don't question it more. I don't know if they're blaming pharmaceuticals or depression or whatever, but it's just like this mass amount of public shootings, disruptions, murders that are just so abundant that I don't know how you couldn't consider maybe there's something larger going on here. And so what I think sometimes is that this is the application, partially, of what was being developed down at Montauk and other alike programs, that the application are these public assassinations or these public disruptions or, I don't know. It's terrifying to even think that it's true, but you cannot deny what's going on right now.
No, you can't. And it's whatever this is that's taking place is this negativity that has taken a hold of society. And I believe there is some very deliberate brainwashing, mind control at play. And, you mentioned the people that commit these atrocities, the mass shootings. I mean, a lot of these people, you'll hear about them and they were perfectly normal, no signs of any distress or mental illness, and they completely lose it. And so you do have to wonder. And I've often wondered too, when you've got people like this, I mean, could they be possessed by some demonic entity? I mean, I think there could be all sorts of things going on, but it's really baffling. And I don't know. Where do you go?
Who even needs a demonic entity when you have technology that can do it for you? And eventually what's going to happen is there's going to be something available for us as a form of entertainment or enhancement. What it's going to be sold to us as is, wow, you can have this little device put in your body. You have limitless intelligence, like no limit to what you can store in your brain, this great hard drive, plus psychic abilities. You can communicate with all your friends and you don't have to use your cell phone anymore. Plus the just vast knowledge and, virtual reality, distancing and traveling, just all in your mind, if all of this one little chip. But what's also going to be able to happen is perfect mind control device. Your thoughts might not even be your thoughts anymore. I mean, and this is the future, but this is going to happen. It's going to be offered to us. And so what were they developing down in Montauk? Who knows? The precursor to some of the stuff that's coming, that's inevitably coming our way, for sure. Now, I just want to add one thing. I'm not a fearmonger. I'm not going to sit and live in fear over this stuff. I'm going to reject a lot of these ideas and keep them away from me. And I'm going to step forward and be a kind and courageous and loving person, and that's how you beat all this stuff. Don't subscribe to the fear. Be fearless, and don't be hateful. Don't get into the whole hate thing where everyone's just talking about the next person and screaming about this person, that person. Tune it out, live your life, and do great things. And I think that's it. That's what I'm deciding to do.
Wow. And you're, but how do you, I mean, and that is, it takes a really grounded and good human being to say that and to kind of keep the balance like you have. But how do we still become aware of this so we can keep ourselves safe from this programming?
I would say be careful of anyone selling you deprogramming, because that's scary to me. What do you need to be deprogrammed for? If the programming is constant, that means you're going to have to pay these people for their constant deprogramming techniques, which I think is a farce. So it's like just, there was one night where this stuff affected me so badly that I was literally having pain, and I'm in good shape. I take care of myself. There's no reason why I should be having pains in my arms and chest and legs, and it was just insane. And it was all out of stress and fear of me, being mind controlled, right? So that night I was just put my foot down and I was just like, I'm not going to think this way anymore. Enough, like just enough of this. I don't believe it, right? So I got to a point where I was like, I'm aware that it exists, but I don't care anymore. I don't believe it. And it was almost instantaneously that the pain started going out of my arms the stress started coming out of my entire body. I didn't feel it anymore in my chest, and I got some sleep that night. And ever since, I've not had these massive anxiety attacks, and it was just in a change of thought. So what I'm saying is, it's almost like this Trojan horse device where someone is selling you, hey, I want to sell you this healing technique to stop the programming. What they're really telling you is, I'm going to inject so much fear into you that you're going to be giving me money for my deprogramming techniques until you're 80 years old, if you make it that long. So I just don't feel, I feel like you should just say, you don't exist. You don't exist. I know this stuff exists, but it doesn't exist to the point where it's going to consume me, nor will I make it my everyday to focus on it. I think that's what I'm really saying, is that change your focus. Focus on your life. Focus on positive. For every negative that's being put into the world, put in something positive into the world. And instead of reacting with anger, because I think if there is a plot or a plan behind all of this, they want us to be divided. They want us to hate each other. They want us to be prejudiced and racist and angry and bigoted and, and then think everyone else is and be overly sensitive and everything that's going on right now. If you just release it and deal with people as they come and deal with your life and be more of a pleasant, spirit moving through this earth, I'm telling you, it's going to start to go away. So if there is some kind of conspiracy, we're falling into it by just reacting. They want you to react,
Right. So when you were really heavy in the mix of this and making the film, did you have any paranormal experiences?
I mean, I've had a couple that I know were completely abnormal, that were not anything that I could explain away in my life. When I was 14, I had something really crazy happen. I mean, there were things that happened in my childhood home for sure. But in terms of paranormal experiences, no, I just, it was more of like this paradigm shift. Like I just started to realize, wow, there really is something. There's certainly something going on, but it's not a reason to, lose your footing or become, completely afraid all the time. To allow yourself to fall in this state of fear 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's just not important. What's important is that you live and that you're doing something positive in the world, because if this is true, this is a small group of people that are causing the trouble. So we're much larger in number, and what we can do is, instead of focusing on them and the problems they're creating, why don't we just create more positive elements to the world? That's what I'm saying. So this is the way I'm thinking now, and that's how I'm handling it, and I'm not falling into paranoia.
That's good. That's important, because it is really, really easy to do. And I know, that, when you get caught up with, is my phone being tapped, or, who's hacked into my computer, or what's happening, da, 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 da. And I mean, we both know that kind of delving into some of this stuff, that there is a good likelihood that we're on the radar of somebody. Yeah. But, then it's like, okay, great. Get into my computer. Really, that good for you. I'm sure you'll enjoy my Facebook post. You do have to be lighthearted and just say, okay, I'm not breaking the law. I'm trying to do something good, and I've got a life and a family, and that's the way it rolls. But this is all, I think, with the murder, with the torture and the time travel and all of these things. I mean, that is so heavy. And I commend you for taking this on and wanting to find out more about this and putting yourself in a position where you were, dealing with situations that could make you paranoid or made you feel kind of threatened.
Yeah, wow. It's just I had never experienced anything. I went through a lot of stuff before I started getting into this, but nothing like this. This was something that really disturbed me, because a loss of self-control, loss of my mind are the most terrifying things to me. And so that's like the whole gist of this thing, that, if you don't do this exercise, if you don't protect yourself, you're going to be attacked in the middle of the night constantly by astral energy. This is the kind of thing they tell you over and over again, these guys. And it's like, I don't know. I think just the thought of that is powerful enough. So it's like the power of suggestion. If you think there are demons around you all the time, they're going to be, one way or another, you know? But if you think that they can't touch you, or these, you know, this energy can't get you, or the mind control just, it's not as strong as it seems, then it can't. And that's been my experience with this way of thinking, you know, because I've been immersed in this for over 10 years, so please forgive me if I'm sounding a little all over the place with it. It's 10 years I'm trying to fit into this conversation, because so much has happened. But mainly is that I learned there are certainly horrible things that have happened deep within the shadow areas of our governments of the world, and they're very much like this story that's being told about the Mantauk Project, almost identical in ways. And then when it comes to the alien stuff and the time travel stuff, I'm not disregarding that. It's just I feel like if there were kids that were murdered in this Mantauk Project program, they don't have a voice because it's always being obscured by these more fantastic elements. And some people see this as an adventurous tale, you know, it's fun. It's not fun. It was never fun for me because I'm always focused on these. I've had reoccurring dreams of this, you know, this horrible kids being hurt and murdered because of my head being filled with it for so many years. So I feel like it's my duty in a way and my destiny to reveal something about this and at least give, if kids were murdered in a program like this, a voice, give them some kind of voice, you know.
That's beautiful. And that's important. Did you, when you were researching this, did you come across any real tangible evidence of the murder or the kids that were missing being taken here?
Well, the numbers of children that were missing around New York in that time are like astronomical. It'll blow your mind. There's a lot of missing people from that time. And even now, believe it or not. A lot of people don't, once you do that research, it's astonishing and terrifying. But on the show, you're going to see, we had, and I'll tell you some of it because I think I'm allowed to tell you a little bit. So we had people with technology, geologists that, you know, I couldn't have access to when I was making Montauk, so I wouldn't pursue a true investigation because I never had the resources, so I did that character study. But in this case, we had a group of people who had proper equipment to see into the ground. And so there, on public record, there's not supposed to be anything underneath the ground in terms of any significant man-made structure. And so we found things like that, you'll see. You know, we explored the idea of the acid houses, which have since been knocked down. And we found things that I think are really going to blow your mind, you know, in that sense. And there was another element that couldn't be confirmed, but there are areas of the grounds that, you know, because you always wonder, how were these kids disposed of? If there were that many thousands of children murdered in that amount of time, what happened to them? What happened to the bodies? Well, according to Stuart Swerdlow and Alfred Bielik and Preston Nichols, it was all different kinds of disposal. Some were buried, some were thrown into the ocean, others were burned in some kind of special crematorium. But I can't tell you this. You got to wait to see the show, and then if I can come back on your show, I'll talk more about it. But I'll say this: the geologists found something, right, that legally they weren't allowed to confirm, but resembled perhaps a mass grave site. So.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Well, you've got me hooked. I'm going to be hanging on every episode, and you're going to have to come back because. I mean, it's staggering. It is staggering that in the United States of America, something like that could take place.
Yeah, but it has. Again, if any of your listeners want to research, a man named Alan Hornblum wrote some books about Holmesburg prison experiments. Check that out because that will blow your mind, and it's basically tantamount to everything I've been telling you.
And you know, the interesting thing is I've been hearing about some of the experiments that have taken place at the Utah State Prison and with connection to a military installation here. And I need to do some research on that and see if I can verify any of that, or maybe I don't. Maybe I just shouldn't go there. But
if you find anything, we'll try and seek it out for a future episode for sure.
Yeah, that would be interesting. But we are. I mean, I'm 80 miles away from Dugway Proving Ground, and that place is incredibly intriguing as well. But luckily, I don't think we've got that going on there. But they did test biological and chemical weapons on humans, and that has been going on. That's just an interesting place, and there's so much we don't know about. And maybe most of the people in the world don't need to know this, but I think that some of us do, and some of us need to step up and do what you're doing. That's really profound and important, and I'm just thrilled to finally have you on the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Absolutely. So just tell, before we go to break, because we've got 2 minutes to break, but tell our listeners where they can find you, are you going to be speaking anywhere? What's your game plan?
I don't have any conventions or anything set up. I'll be on the show on August 25th, and if you want to see my movie, it's you can find it at MantaukChronicles.com, Amazon, or go to VHX.com if you want to buy the download or rental. So, but otherwise, you can send me a message on anywhere I'm on Facebook and social media, and you can send me a message, and I'll get to you. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
And that's really nice, because so many people, it's hard to respond to, you get floods of messages, and I'm sure when the History Channel show makes its debut, you're going to be inundated. But that's awesome that you take the time to reach out to people. I think that's important, because you're doing this for the right reasons.
Oh, thank you.
That's very evident.
You too.
Thank you. I'm Erica Lukes, and I just want to say I'm super excited about my guest tonight, and make sure you go to mtkchronicles.com. Christopher is going to be back. We've got one more segment left, and we're going to explore Mantauk a little bit further, and just the dark files, all of these wonderful things. Not wonderful, but interesting things. Make sure you find me on Facebook. You can go to UFOclassified.com to see who my next guest will be on the show. We will catch you on the other side of the break.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified
with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
1 million miles till midnight. A story of timelines, artificial worlds, simulated races, and the galactic imprint, and the destiny of a blue world called Earth. 1 million miles till midnight, written by Solaris Blue Raven, is a journey through the mind's eye which allows the reader to surf a wave of technological and multidimensional intellect, revealing a bridge between conscious design and the truth. A multidimensional bleed-through awakens the world of artificial intelligence to set sail into the frontiers of a vast multiverse, morphing planets and terraforming ascended worlds beyond the linear programs of a fated race. 1 million miles till midnight will awaken, inspire, prepare, and enlighten one to the many multidimensional states of consciousness and worlds we reside in. With every cell and atom, we are this truth and multiverse. 1 million miles till midnight. Written by Solaris Blue Raven. Available now at Amazon.com and GlenNT.com. Don't wait. Get your copy today.
Bowl for Life is a non-profit organization founded in 2013 by Chuck Gardner with one simple goal: to grow the sport of bowling worldwide. Over the years, Bowl for Life has given out thousands of dollars in scholarships to youth bowlers around the world. Our focus is to nurture integrity, honesty, professionalism, as well as respect into bowlers both young and old. You can help us by going to bowlforlife.com. Even the smallest donation goes a long way to breaking down the barriers and helping us assist people of all ages to improve their skills as well as knowledge of the game. Bowl for Life is happy to be partnered with other great organizations like the Youth Education Services Fund, as well as the United States Bowling Congress, with many spectacular integrated events planned in the near future. To learn more, go to bowlforlife.com. That's bowlforlife.com.
That's
good.
Turn your radio up. I love it. All the music I want to hear. This is my station.
If ever a breed was affectionate to a fault, it's the Golden Retriever. They're people dogs, pure and simple. And the Golden Retriever Rescue of Southern Nevada needs your help. If you would like to volunteer, foster, adopt, or donate, go to the Golden Retriever Rescue of Southern Nevada's website at grrsn.org. That's grrsn.org. Or call 598-GOLD. That's 598-GOLD.
Each week, join Patrick Phillips as he takes you inside Hollywood. In-depth celebrity interviews, the very latest entertainment news, and more. Patrick Phillips hosts Pop Culture Tonight.
Join me Thursdays at 1 p.m. right here on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Erica Lukes, and you're listening to KCOR Digital Broadcasting Network, the best radio station on the planet. I always have to give a shout out to the most wonderful producer and my friend Tina Marie, who has a great station. I'm so blessed to be here, to have the support that I do, and I want to thank all of you for tuning in and supporting me. I have a great group of people. All my friends are in chat tonight. Please make sure you spread the word. And if you are so inclined, go to UFOclassified.com and check out the website. I'll be adding new articles, information about my travels, and perhaps a YouTube video of me. Maybe I'll rent a car just for fun in Norway and drive around with a GoPro. That could really scare everybody, but we'll give it a try. My guest this evening is Christopher Garetano, and he is a filmmaker. He has got a new show out. He researches things that are pretty dark, and Mantauk is something that is incredibly dark. The Mantauk Chronicles is the story of three men who were brainwashed, forced against their will to do experiments, and this place, Camp Hero, was used as a defense station, and it was also used to apparently, allegedly murder and torture young boys. So, Christopher, we were talking about with your show, getting in there, you've got geologists that are doing research. You found some curious things that you can't talk about until the show airs. But, I mean, were the people that you brought in to do the show with you, were they shocked at some of the results that you had?
Well, I was part of the process on the Dark Files from day one. It went through a few incarnations before we decided what it was going to be, and so I was part of the selection process of my co-hosts, and we went through about 30 different people, male and female, and I mean, at the end of it, I just felt like Steve Volk, who was the author who wrote Fringeology, which is a fantastic book, and Barry Eisler, who is also an author, but he is ex-CIA. Those two guys, I just felt were the right combination because, Barry's experience in the CIA, I felt would have an incredible insight on all of this, because what you have is you have gentlemen claiming they were part of, deep operations. So a man with experience should be able to, amongst other things, train to, find the weird body language and stuff for people who are lying. He'd just be the perfect person to have there. He's a really good person and a good soul. And Steve has a very skeptical approach, but a fair one. I mean, like his book is written. I loved his book, so I knew this was the man to have on the show. But their approach was a little less, I would say, open, not as open as I am, only because I've had some very strange experiences personally that I couldn't explain. So I'm a little more observant. And my job as a filmmaker is not to come to this big conclusion. It was more about the journey for me. So I think we're a great combination of people, and I think in this case where you do have gentlemen like, even Stuart Swirlo claims that he was at the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, it's a big claim. You can't just say, oh, well, because he said it, it's true. Like a guy says that, you have to put him to task, especially if he's recruiting people and charging them money and all that. So it's like, so it's important. It's not for the sake of disgracing anyone or making a funny show like Penn and Teller did with their show for Showtime. It's nothing like that. It's a very serious show, and everybody involved, even the people who are skeptical, care enough to take it into consideration. So that's the people I worked with, and I'm really grateful for it, because I've had experiences in the past where I've kind of worked with other networks developing stuff, and the shows were, I would have been in misery, and right now I wouldn't be able to tell you that I could support this thing if I didn't feel this was so worth putting out into the world. So I'm just grateful to be around all these guys and to have the experience myself to be around them and to have investigated this further with them and with the resources that we have. And so I'm just so excited for you to see it.
Oh, I'm excited to see it too. I think we all are. So when you filmed the first episode, how long did it take you to film it?
Wow. So finally there was a lot of work in development and pre-production. So finally, when we had the structure of the show down, the planning, organizing people to talk to, organizing the logistics of getting this, it was a big crew, it was a big production, getting everybody everywhere they needed to be. We started actually shooting in September of 2016. We stopped shooting in like April of this year. And so, because I was also I was hired as an executive producer to help develop the show and get the details down with everybody else. As the director of the recreations, so I did, I actually directed the recreations in the show like I did for my own movie, and also a host. By last summer they wanted me to be on the show too, so I was doing all of this stuff, and it's such an enormous thing to get down that I think the first episode, which is this 2-hour episode, nailing the structure was why I think it took so long, because I know we're going forward to making this a show, a season, at least one. There's going to be more than one episode, and so it's not going to take a year each episode. So it's, I think it was really just finding what this thing was supposed to be was the hard part and why it took so long.
So how many people were involved in making the show?
Oh, God. I don't know. I mean, even there were people that were involved in the show that I didn't even meet, like in post-production and stuff like that. So, 60 people maybe altogether.
Wow.
Yeah. Maybe more.
That is incredible. Oh, I bet it's going to be beautiful, and especially since you had so much creative control over it.
Yeah, I had a lot of creative input. They were really, the way it works is you have the production companies and you have the networks. The network was involved very heavily from day one, but the production company is Texas Crew Productions. They were responsible for a great program about Alcatraz that was on History Channel, I believe. And then they did the latest big documentary about Obama this past year. And they just do such a fantastic job and quality work. So I really felt, I saw their stuff and I felt very secure moving forward with them. And so just going through it, they were always it was just a perfect situation. They were always open to my ideas. They were complimentary and kind and supportive. And I wrote tons of notes, so not everything made it into the show, but a lot of it did. And they had their own great ideas. So I don't know. I have no complaints over the situation. It really is just a fine show, and I hope we get to continue that way.
And that's awesome to hear that, because sometimes I think, you get, and you've got the knowledge to back it up. I mean, you're pretty proficient with the film industry and all of this, so you get it. But sometimes when new people are doing shows and things, you get hooked up with, shows that, I mean, you're not making as much as you should. All of your work is being cut and edited, and so you're not being portrayed correctly. And there are some bad things that happen, especially to people that are researching UFOs that are really trying to put good information out there. So I'm glad that you have all of that confidence and you've got a good team around you. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'm so happy with the way it turned out. Originally this was supposed to air in April, and they extended post-production to really just nail what it should be. And so it went through a couple of different cuts. And, like you were saying, I was always happy with the cuts, but the final cut of the show is, I feel, the true representation of what we went through together. Not everything made it in, of course, because you just can't fit it into the 2-hour period, and that includes commercials. So I really feel like that final cut is just so solid, and if it's I think it's the best perspective you'll ever get, and the most honest one on the Mantauk Project conspiracy. By watching my picture and then watching this show is I think the best. There's nothing better, because a lot of those books are very biased. And if you even, so you experience what I did throughout this whole thing, the whole journey, it's there, and we took it seriously. I took it seriously when I made my picture. And of course, everybody involved in Dark Files took it seriously. It wasn't like a one-off. It's, they really cared so much about this thing. So
that I'm so happy to hear that. This is going to be really, really cool. And I definitely want you back on the show for sure.
Thank you.
We've got to talk about this, but we have a question from one of my chat room friends. He wants to know, have any official Montauk documents surfaced?
Okay, I think now none of official documents that kind of have some incorrect information. So they claim, we have the blueprints of the base and stuff, claim there's nothing under the ground. Well, guess what? There is. And you're going to find out how we found this out and what exactly it may be. Whatever it is, it's huge, and it's not insignificant. And so that's a lie. Those public documents are not telling the truth. We also had a great presence of officials trying to keep us out of there. Really weird stuff, like the behavior you'll see on the show, like just out of the blue, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is doing a big operation in the middle of the winter, just the same day we're there. I mean, come on. So, yeah, there's some weird stuff that happened. There was a lot of resistance in terms of permits and stuff like that. So, what I think is going to happen is these documents that you're mentioning will surface. I have another source that I'm talking to who had a relative who worked and lived there, and she has tons of stuff that had, thousands and thousands of photos and documents that I think deserve to be looked through. And if this man was alive today, which is your grandfather, he probably would have a lot to say. But he's not, so he left all these documents behind. And I believe there are other things we're going to discover along the way that, maybe just like in MK Ultra, that a document will slip through. Something's going to slip because the pressure is on now. Now, here's the other thing. Not to get paranoid again, but this is kind of dangerous because we could have made a show, just played up the whole, like I portray all the alien stuff and all the time travel stuff appropriately because this is what the gentlemen talk about in my film. So I illustrated that as it's being described, through my imagination. And we do it in the show too. But we could have just focused on that, made an entertainment fluff piece out of it. And what we're doing now is we're pursuing something that could lead to evidence that there was a major crime committed here. And people are going to be liable and have to stand, before courts and before the public and before the world if we can prove this is true. And so to me, that feels dangerous sometimes. Sometimes I question, well, what am I doing here? I'm just a guy who wants to make movies. But at the same time, I feel this strong pull, this obligation to do something with this. If there was one kid killed in this program, I think it's important to uncover.
Absolutely, and just think if this is going down the road that we think it might be going down. I mean, it's really powerful and frightening. And I commend you, and I will be praying for you.
Thank you.
Really, because this is really, you do put yourself in jeopardy when you're doing this. Absolutely, especially with what you're doing. And I think it takes a brave and unique individual to want to do this. And I'm glad you've got a good support system around you.
Thank you so much. That's the most terrifying thing, I guess. To the other side would be if we all start thinking clearly, that we intelligently and calmly start looking for evidence in these extraordinary, because Mantauk was a challenge. It's the most extraordinary, at times ridiculous, paranormal legend, because there's just so much going on down there. But if you keep your focus on, I think, the believable parts, everything else will come with it if you're able to prove it one day. So that other stuff really shouldn't matter outside of the storytelling. But when it's mixed with brutality and rape and murder, it's a different thing. It's different, it's different than the other stuff. It's in a world of its own.
So where with the other episodes, where are you going to be going with the series?
Well, they asked from me a list of things that I would hope for. So I mentioned Plum Island. I mentioned the Long Island serial killer. I mentioned a whole bunch of things, the Brookhaven Labs apparent UFO crash, things like that I'm interested in. And I know that Steve had his own suggestions, and production had their own suggestions. So it's probably going to be a combination of all of us. I know they probably took a few of mine. And so stuff like that, other deep government operations, other mishaps, other things that we feel the public should know about, and that would make good television too, because that's also our job. You have to make a good show. I think that a lot of these shows could be quite insulting and a waste of time, and I think let's give you something worth sitting there for 2 hours. I want you to walk away from this feeling like you got a full meal out of this.
I have no doubt that people will feel that way, and I will have a big party for the premiere, and then we send you Facebook posts and different things. And what are you going to be doing for the premiere?
Well, my family is doing the same. I mean, I have currently living now. I moved to a few different places over the years, but I'm living near my family now, finally, after years, and so they're throwing me a little party. I live out in Florida. I'm renting a nice little house by the water, and it's where I have my office, and it's where I can concentrate and write and feel good about my life. So I'm just going to hang with them and celebrate, and probably text Steve and Barry while I'm watching, and you and anybody else that's enjoying the show.
That is so cool. I'd love that. And I have a little part on a show that's on Destination America, and I remember I had one of the people on the show over, and we had a big party, and kind of the same thing, because it's exciting. It's an accomplishment. And especially with you taking such a big role in this, that'll be fun. And I'll definitely do that. And we can keep track of everything. And I'll get, I know that all of my listeners will be watching, because it just sounds so intriguing and well done. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're not going to let you down on this one, I promise. I've watched it several times, and I feel good about it, because I'm my worst critic. I'm the guy who took a full movie and threw it out and started all over again. So I'm pretty crazy when it comes to this stuff.
You're a perfectionist, and that's a beautiful thing. So there's one more question that we have from Libertas. He wants to know, did you inquire with anyone like Swerdlow regarding the building layout that you tested against the blueprints to validate his claims?
Yeah, I mean, again, the stuff coming from Alfred and Stewart, Preston, Duncan, it's kind of biased, because let's just take into consideration for a moment that they are, not telling the truth. But they have described the layout underneath, and I would say what we found is going to number one, it's going to blow your mind for anybody that just realizes, wow, put all these things together when you watch The Dark Files, and this you can no longer deny. You cannot deny this anymore. And so what we did find was, I would say, pretty consistent with what was described, this enormous facility that's underneath the radar tower. We got as close as possible because we were being prevented from getting any closer. I mean, there was like this just agitated effort to get us away from those sensitive areas, even though we did conduct an experiment, a couple of them, with the geologists. Of course, those are the guys that know what they're doing, and came up with incredible stuff, in my opinion.
Oh, this is so cool. I like I said, I'm so excited for you. I mean, you have this mission, and you very genuinely care about making sure if any child's life was lost, that this is brought out to the world. And I think that is remarkable. What else do you hope to accomplish with the series, with your life, with your work?
Well, I mean, again, I'm a movie maker. It is my love and passion, and definitely an artist. So I want to just make movies where people are inspired at the end, one way or another. Okay, but with the show and this TV work and this type of investigative work, I think it's important to hopefully rewrite history a little bit. Okay, and confirm things that maybe we thought one thing was happening and another thing was happening. And I think it's important for everyone to know this stuff, become aware, not be afraid though. My thing is, I don't want you to be afraid. I want you to be strong and courageous and aware, and know that as long as we all know about what's going down, it's going to stop. That's the thing. So if we discover the stuff, it's not about being scared. It's about ending it somehow. Because I feel like if this stuff was happening in the 70s and the early 80s, one way or another, it's still happening now somewhere. So that's not right. That's not what we're being told. And we can't just go to sleep and pretend like everything's okay. But again, you can't live in fear. So it's somewhere you got to find this comfortable balance in the middle somehow.
Absolutely. But you have to be an accountable human being. I mean, I think the world is in the state it is because we don't take the time to get involved with our community. We don't take the time to dig and find out what we're being told, what's truth, what's, fake news, whatever. We need to be involved. We need to be accountable, and we need to make a change. I really think that, and I think that so many people just toe the line, and if we keep doing that, we're never going to change the world.
It's true. It's very true. Yeah, but see, and that's the thing. It's like something that really encourages you to think, at the same time entertains you, I think is maybe the way to do it. Maybe it's the way to inspire people. Like if you've noticed, where's all the great music? Where are all the real mind-blowing movies that we used to have? There's some, don't get me wrong. Like I like some of the new movies and some new music that's coming out and stuff, but I think people need to be inspired again. We kind of lost that a little bit, and become individuals with that kind of thing. Whatever you're contributing to the world, it should be part of you. And so, like, I see, just shifting gears for 1 second, is like seeing stuff on like Etsy and people running their own businesses, selling their own artwork is beautiful. And I did the same thing with Mantauk Chronicles. I made that from top to bottom. I found the manufacturing plants for the DVDs and Blu-rays. Everything is shipped from me, at least right now, and has been. So it's like, it's personal. It's like, this movie's handmade. I'm selling it to you, and I'm giving you something that I made with my own mind and hands, as opposed to this big committee. But weirdly enough, with a network attached to this project, it felt kind of the same way, just with a lot more people involved. Like it all felt like we were really cared about it. Even guys in the camera crew cared a lot about it. So, and that's their job. They're union guys, but they care. So
you've got that passion, and this is your baby, and it's cool that you found people to work with that respect your passion and your vision and the importance of the project. So I just I wish you all of the luck in the world, even though you're not going to need it, because this will be hugely successful, and I cannot wait to see it and to, Skype you or send you my pictures and
of course
all of that good stuff. That's
Thank
so
you so
cool.
much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been such a pleasure to have you on tonight.
My pleasure.
Oh my gosh, yeah. In fact, I'm going to have all my girlfriends that think you're pretty handsome. I just had to say that, because they were looking at your website and everything, and they're just, he is such a great filmmaker, and he's so handsome, and
Tell them I said hello.
I will. You have some fans out there, so.
Thank you so much.
That's wonderful. I'm so excited to have you here. So anyway, I just want to tell all of you, thank you so much for listening, for supporting UFO Classified. Please send me your messages, your comments, and, if you have any ideas for researchers or people that I need to bring on, let me know, because it is incredibly difficult to find people that are truly knowledgeable, and that I do my digging, and I will keep doing that every week because I believe in what I do, just like Christopher believes in all of his work, and it's coming into fruition. It's such a beautiful thing. Go to mtkchronicles.com to learn more about Mantauk Chronicles, and Christopher, I wish you the best of luck, and I can't wait to talk to you off air. I'm Erica Lukes. Stick around for a great night on KCOR. I'll catch you next week.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network.